up guys, this is Tom. I have in front of me the brand new Moto E from Motorola. This is a smartphone that actually comes in at $129 off contract. This is just an unbelievable price for a smartphone. And I also have the Samsung Galaxy S5. Now this comes in at almost $700 unlocked on Amazon. In other words, you could almost buy 6 new unlocked Moto E's for the price of this one Galaxy S5. Obviously, the Samsung Galaxy S5 is a much better smartphone than the Moto E. Its display is far better, the camera is light years ahead, it has a much better battery, and it's just all in round a much more capable smartphone. This is of course what you'd expect. Though in my time of playing around with the Moto E, apart from the price, it's pretty clear to me that there's one area which the Moto E is a better smartphone than the Samsung Galaxy S5, or moreover, an area in which the Moto E performs better. That area is software performance. Comparing the processing power within both phones, the Samsung Galaxy S5 is rocking a quad-core Snapdragon 801 chip along with 2 gigs of RAM, compared to the dual-core Snapdragon 200 chip with 1 gig on the Moto E. In other words, the performance on the S5 should obliterate the Moto E without a shadow in the doubt in every way, shape or form, but that's not exactly what happens, so hear me out here. The Moto E is running Android 4.4.2, this it has in common with the Samsung Galaxy S5. However, on the Moto E, Motorola has taken the approach that they've done with their other phones, such as the Moto G and the Moto X, both of which are fantastic smartphones, and the experience is incredibly similar to stock Android. Very little tampering has been done with the software, and it's a similar experience to what you'd find on a Nexus device. On the S5, however, Samsung most definitely hasn't taken this route. Instead, you'll find an Android version with Samsung TouchWiz overlaid on top, almost totally changing the user experience, and sadly, drastically slowing down the performance of the S5. Tasks that should be incredibly quick and simple for the S5, like launching apps, are slightly sluggish, and I'm going to demonstrate what I'm talking about here. Let's jump into the speed comparison. Okay, so I have the Samsung Galaxy S5 and the Moto E in front of me, as you can see right here. So the kind of size comparison, first of all, we have a 4.3-inch screen on the Moto E on the right, and then we have a obviously a 5.1-inch in the Samsung Galaxy S5 here. So what we're just going to do is, first of all, kind of go through some overviews, kind of speed tests between the two phones. So first of all, let's just start off with unlocking the devices, see how responsive they are to actually just unlock. So we'll power them on at the same time, and then swipe away, and as you can see, the Moto E, excuse me, is ever so slightly quicker than the Samsung Galaxy S5 there. Next up, what we're going to do is launch the camera application. So let's just go into the app tray for both phones, and then go along to the camera, and here we are. So 3, 2, 1. And as you can see, the Moto E again is first to launch the camera application, quicker than the Samsung Galaxy S5. It's not an enormous amount, but it definitely is quicker. Next up, let's go ahead and launch the gallery. So head back onto the home screens for both phones. Go into the gallery on the Moto E. Let's head over because it's not on my home screen. 3, 2, 1, launch. There we go, you can see that there's a massive difference there, and the Moto E is a hell of a lot quicker actually to launch that application compared to the S5. Let's go ahead and launch Google Plus now, head out onto there, just because there's actually some quite noticeable differences in frame rates on these two phones. Let's go ahead and launch Google Plus. 3, 2, 1, there we go. And as you can see, the Moto E again is ever so slightly quicker to load up the app and its content. So what I just wanted to do is kind of demonstrate the frame rate differences by using the navigational panel on Google+. So if I just open this up, you can see that it's actually slightly laggy on the S5. Again, it's not an enormous issue. You probably won't notice this in everyday usage, but it is slightly less responsive than the Moto E navigation system than on the S5, as you can see. A lot of the times this can be demonstrated as well through scrolling, so let's just go ahead and kind of scroll down. You can see that the S5 is pretty laggy. It's kind of juddering along, whereas the Moto E on the right is pretty smooth scrolling. Obviously you have the pauses for the loading of both phones, but the S5 definitely is kind of holding occasionally. It just feels like it's a less responsive UI, and again, that is Samsung TouchWiz at work compared to relatively close to stock Android on the Moto E. And there we have it, guys. Obviously take this with a grain of salt. The Samsung Galaxy S5 is overall a quicker smartphone. This is purely to highlight how bad Samsung's software optimization is. And if I had included things like benchmarks and gaming performance within this video, the Moto E would have been pretty much just destroyed, and that's as you would expect for a smartphone so much more expensive. I thought it would make an interesting comparison nevertheless, and it just goes to show you just how good stock Android really is, and kind of highlight why these manufacturers need to overlay their own software over the top. An experience like a Nexus 5 is often a hell of a lot faster than something with a huge amount of software overlaid on top of it. If you'd like to see more Moto E coverage, please leave a comment down below. I'll be replying to almost all comments over the next few days posted in there. Whilst you're down there, feel free to subscribe, drop the video a like if you have enjoyed it. Otherwise, guys, I'll see you next time.